Hey guys, Erie is here and welcome along to another video. Now everybody knows what the most dangerous corners are on Gran Turismo. Corners like Eau Rouge at Spa, Paddock Hill Bend at Brands Hatch, and of course the Death Chicane at Dragon Trail Seaside. But there's actually one other, one that's probably more dangerous than all of them put together, but for very different reasons. It's this one here, and in today's video I'm going to show you exactly why. So it was a new week on Gran Turismo, which of course means we get some new dailies. So we were going to jump into Daily Race C, which is at Nürburgring GP in the Group 3 cars. But before we even get into that, we needed to do some qualification in the time trial. So we went and got ourselves into this, the Beetle. We got ourselves a ghost of the quickest time using said Beetle, and we got to work. Now this is not the car that we're going to be using for the races. We're going to be using a different car, and this is because of the multipliers for this race. The multipliers for this race, as you can see, are 6 times fuel and 5 times tyres. Now if we were going to use this car to complete the race, which is 10 laps long, we would have no fuel and no tyres left, and the best strategy for this race is a no stopper, because you're just going to lose more time in the pits than you would if you would fuel save. I think it's about 20 seconds here, so you'd have to be saving yourself over 2 seconds a lap to make it worth it. So we're not going to worry about any of that. We're just going to go for the no stopper in an appropriate car. So our best quali lap ended up being a 1 minute 54.9, which puts us 1.4 seconds off the best time in the world at the time of setting the time. Not too mad at that at all, and we took that time into the race. So here we are then, lined up for race number 1. Our quali time had us starting in 5th for this one, and the car we've chosen, as you can see, is the new Subaru that's been recently released. We went with this car because we used it a couple of weeks back at Suzuka, a race that had similar requirements, and we found it did well. It was good on fuel, it takes care of its tyres, and a big bonus as well is that the car remains stable even when the tyres begin to wear at the end of the race. So as we get underway here, we're going to come down towards turn number 1. Excited for this one, it should be a good race. And just like that, the race is over. We didn't even get through turn number 1 without incident. Let's check the replay and see what happened. And yep, as anticipated, he's just going to miss his braking point, come in and just take us out. At least he waited though, right? At least he waited. He got himself a 5-second penalty as well, so not only my race is over, as you can see up ahead here, he's only just in front of us even before he serves that penalty, so his race is pretty much over as well. And this is why I said this is the most difficult corner on Gran Turismo. Not because it's actually a hard corner to get through, but the corner just leaves you incredibly vulnerable. And there's a very, very high chance, as we've seen here, of being dive bombed or being taken out due to somebody else's mistake. And for us in this one, it led to the remainder of the race being quite boring, to be quite honest. We made up a place there as he served his penalty. We also had an okay move here down into turn number 1 to take 8th. We made up another place up to 7th coming out of the Mercedes-Benz arena here, taking to the grass to get past, but a pass is a pass, and up to 7th we went. And we also got one further place as someone quit out. But as I say, that was all she wrote for this one. We were going to come out the final corner here after a rather dull remainder of the race. I can't sugarcoat it, to 6th place. So only a net loss of 1 actually, but we're hoping for much, much better and to make it past turn 1 without incident as we move on to race number 2. So here we are then, lined up for race number 2, and to be honest, all I really want to do is make it through turn number 1 unscathed. That is the main aim. Then we can worry about fuel and battling for positions, etc, etc, once we make it through that first corner. So here we go then, we're on the run down to turn number 1. The scene of the accident last time out. We hit the anchors as we normally do, and we made it through. Thankfully the guy behind didn't dive bomb. There wasn't any further dive bombs for anyone further behind, and we come out unscathed. We're here in third place now, just following the fellow Brit in first and the Finn in second. But as we come out of the Mercedes-Benz arena here, we're actually, you can probably hear it, we're going to get overtaken and now see it by the Porsche next to us. But that's not a problem at this point, because all we really need to worry about is fuel. We didn't get too much of a chance to talk about the fuel in the last race because, well, for obvious reasons. So let's run through it now. We've got 10 laps obviously, as you can see here, which equates to 10% of fuel allocated per lap. And as I said, doing a pit stop is just not an option. In such a short race as this, I mean it's long in terms of Gran Turismo terms, but it's only 10 laps long. So in such a short race, you just simply can't gain the time back that you would spend in the pits if you went full bore and then had to come in. So even if you do push, you're not going to cover that time off. So we need to manage the fuel, and we're going to do this through a mixture of short shifting and fuel map changing, aiming for that 10% per lap. Now I'm actually glad at this point there's no one around us. There's a good gap to the Frenchman behind, and we can see all the cars up in front. And I'm glad about this because the view that I choose to use doesn't have a built-in rear view mirror, so I need to use the radar when we're in and amongst other cars, and you cannot have the radar on at the same time as the fuel menu. So you need to be flicking around. There's lots of back and forth, and it's just a bit difficult and a bit much to manage. So the plan here is to be in fuel mix 1 for the straights, and as you can see here, fuel map number 6 for the Mercedes-Benz arena, and we're just going to be in fuel map 3 in between. But that's only a plan really, as trying to spot the brake markers and hitting apexes and things whilst competing at this level is incredibly difficult, and fiddling with all of those various knobs at the same time is just exhausting. So I'm happy to sit behind them for now, just aiming to hit our 10% fuel usage per lap, and we will see what the rest of the race brings. As we start the next lap, lap number 3, you're going to see up ahead that the Porsche continues its move up the field, and it's going to overtake the Beetle down into turn number 1. So this is what I mean about just letting the race unfold and letting the race come to us. This is a good thing about fuel saving races. Now, I know fuel saving races where there's a no stopper, well, when the no stopper is the most viable option, often gets a lot of heat. Now I like them. There's lots to think about, and actually whilst they seem not very strategic, they're actually incredibly strategic. When you have a limited amount of fuel to use, when and when not to use it, I consider pretty much an art. You can use it to attack, you can use it to defend, and you never know how much everybody around you has. And sometimes you may even get a treat at the end of the race and get some freebies as people run out. But we're not going to let that happen to us, and we're going to try to just keep things nice and calm and hold position. We're going to manage that fuel to the target and just sit here nicely behind third, keeping or trying to keep within a second, because we're planning, if we get an opportunity, for a bit of a run at the podium in the closing stages if possible. We're moving ahead here to lap number 6, so we're over halfway now and the plan is being executed well. But what is about to happen here was not part of the plan, and I have a massive accident after running wide and stick it in the wall. Absolute nightmare. As you can see here, the engine's totaled, we've got tyre damage, and we've got front fender damage. We're in big trouble here, and any chance of third at this point, the third that we've been patiently waiting to try and attack, is now completely gone. And we're now about to get swallowed up by the second group. We get a little push there from 5th, but he's going to realise that our car's completely destroyed. We're too slow for him, and he's going to go up the inside into the hairpin. So down to 5th we go. Now this race is dynamic, has completely changed. The race, as I say, that was on for third is now very much on for fourth. And I'm now going to have to balance having the radar on, having the fuel on, all this sort of stuff, all the stuff that I just had under control. I cannot believe I have done this. So for now, we're going to sit behind the Subaru up in front, even though the Porsche behind is looking a little bit racy, and see what we can do about getting this fourth place. So we're going to come down into the final chicane here, pick our braking point, get it turned in, but unfortunately we just get a little bit of a slide on halfway through, which is going to allow the Porsche up the inside. That's probably down to the fact that our tyres are more worn than they should be because of our accident earlier on in the lap. So we're down to 6th here as we come across the line to start lap number 7. We're going to try and take this place back. It feels like at this point we need to get just that little bit more aggressive so that we can hang on to 4th. But as we come into turn number 1 here, the Porsche does a great job of hanging it around the outside. Of course, we give him enough room. Takes 2 to tango these good battles, and he's done a fantastic job to hold on to 5th. So that's pretty much our one attempt at this point of getting that place back, because we need to just think about the bigger picture, which is the fuel. You can see here we're messing around with the fuel again. We've got 39% left, which is great. We're on course, but that will disappear very, very quickly if we start going down to fuel mix 1 or anything like that in places where we shouldn't. So like here, we need to resist the temptation of going down to fuel map 1. We need to just stay in fuel map 3 and hope that the fact that they battle will bring us back into play. So as you can see up in front here, we have got front seats to the battle for 4th. The Porsche is going to run a little bit wide there. We're going to come through the Schumacher S's. We've got a nice run, to be quite honest here, and we're back in the game. And that's just what we need to do. Just stay in the game and see what happens at the end of the race. We're going to flick it down to fuel map 1 and then back up to fuel map 3 here. And the reason that we're staying in 3, or was going to stay in 3, is because we were close enough behind them. If we can save ourselves a fuel map or 2 by staying in the slipstream, then that will help us come the end of the race. So coming into the final chicane here, over one side, over the other side, make sure we hit that bollard on the way out. That will ensure that you get a good exit. If you've centered that bollard, it sounds horrendous. I'm amazed it's still standing, but if you've done that, you know you've got a good exit. And we're going to come across the line here to finish lap number 7 and start lap number 8. We've got 32% of fuel, so we're actually a little bit further up than we need to, but we're still going to stay disciplined, and we're going to stay in fuel map 6 for the Mercedes-Benz Arena. And we're just going to stay on board here. It's nice and easy at this point to just sit behind them and watch them battle whilst trying to save as much fuel as possible. So this Mercedes-Benz Arena, it is such a technical part of the circuit. You've got to be so careful here not to run wide as we did earlier on, otherwise you'll be in that barrier on the right as we head down towards turn 6 and then turn 7, which is the Ford curve. You've got to stay in the middle ideally of the track. We've gone a little bit further left here. Be careful not to run out onto the gravel, because then you're going to compromise your run all the way down to the Dunlop curve. One of the most iconic corners in European motorsport, in world motorsport. And at this iconic corner, you'll see that the Porsche has just overtaken the Subaru and has taken 4th place. Now we're still in a great place here. We're still in a great place, but we don't actually know what the fuel situation is. And we've got a bit of fuel, so we can be a little bit more aggressive here. What we don't want is the Porsche to run away and gap us, because the overall goal is, of course, after our little mishap earlier on in this one, 4th place. But as we look ahead, speaking of 4th, the Porsche has run a little bit wide, and we're now going to end up almost 3 wide, well I would have done if there was room, down into the final chicane. So I pull out early. He's going to keep it in. The Subaru's going to go wide, then come back across. But because of that, his exit has been compromised, and we're able to dive down the outside and up into 5th place as we come around the final corner. This is just showing we need to be in it at this point, because anything can happen. But we just need to be super, super careful, of course, of the fuel. That's why I'm flicking up to 6, despite us having 22%, because I want as much fuel as possible for the final stages. Look at that radar. We've got 4 cars now, including myself, on the radar. A fellow Brit has joined the party. So after a fairly calm first half of this race, this second race has been non-stop action. We find ourselves embroiled in a 4-way battle for 4th place. This is exhausting. Just keeping this thing on the black stuff, as I mentioned earlier, is hard enough without having to worry about the radar, the fuel. You'll see us flicking back and forth, and also we just don't want to get that wrong, because you can have things like that. Just one little issue there and one little misjudgment, there is going to be contact. Thankfully there's no penalties though, but what that has done is now put us under pressure from 6th. The Porsche is going to run a bit wide there. He gets a good run out though, because he's able to straighten the car up earlier and get on the power earlier, and we're going to follow him all the way up the hill. Our tyres are still hurting from the issue earlier on, so we have to be super careful through the S's, and we're going to pick our braking point here coming down into turns 11 and 12. Now the exit of this one, turn number 12, is so important because it leads us, of course, onto the back straight. Well, I call it a back straight, there's a big kink in it, but it's as good as the back straight. And we're going to give the Porsche up in front something to think about. We're going to pretend to look up the inside, we're not going to go for it. Hopefully we're going to lead him into making a mistake. If he doesn't make a mistake, we may get him to use a bit more fuel than he needs to. So we're sat behind here as we come out of the final corner, and it's now a case, as we cross the line to start the final lap, give it everything. We're revving the car right the way out, we're in fuel map 1, he's going to go to the inside to defend, and we're going to chuck it up the inside. There's no time left. This is it. We're not giving an inch here. There's a bit of contact in turn number 1. I'm not sure who's at fault, so I leave it on the outside and I let him have the place back. I let him have the place back by waiting to get on the throttle, and by doing so I've actually given up 5th as well. Now those of you who watch me regularly will know that I do this regularly because I like to err on the side of caution. That was 50-50 for me. It may have been a racing incident, it may have been my fault, I did miss the apex after all, he may have turned in early, who knows. All I know is I feel that I did the right thing there, and we've let him back through. We've let him back through, so there can't be any issues. As you can see up ahead, the Porsches, well, we're surrounded by Porsches, but it looks like their tyres are beginning to go a little bit. They're beginning to go just that tiny bit. Ours aren't in great shape either. You can see that the Porsche up in front has run wide. That's going to give us a run on him, or at least the ability to stay with him all the way up the hill. But this isn't the best opportunity. This isn't the best opportunity. So I'm going to change down to 3, then back up to 1 in preparation for our final shot, which is going to be out of turn number 12 onto the back straight. So we get a good run out of turn number 12. He goes slightly wide, and we are now up the inside. Once again, power map 1, revving this thing the whole way. We're side by side here, coming down into the final chicane. He, unfortunately for us, has the inside line, so we're going to cut back, try and get on the power nice and early, but he's just too slow through there. I couldn't clear him. There's contact. Again, no penalty, but he's going to keep the position. We try and take the final corner a little bit wider so we can get on the power as early as possible, but it's not going to be enough here, and after a fantastic battle, we are going to end up with another P6. And with that, that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Please do remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Please do make sure you're subscribed to the channel as well if you haven't already. And I will see you guys very soon. Cheers.